All right, let's talk about data. If you're working with data, you're almost certainly working with CSV files. They're everywhere. But what if I told you there's a much better way? Today, we're going to dive into something called the Parquet file format. It's a powerful alternative that could save you a ton of time, space, and frankly, a whole lot of headaches.
Okay, let's just get right to the heart of it with the question that's probably on your mind. CSV is everywhere, right? It's simple, it works, for the most part. So can't we just live with it? It's a totally fair question, and to answer it, we gotta be really honest about the format's limits. Because here's the thing, for any kind of modern data work, those little annoyances with CSVs start to add up. They become these huge bottlenecks that just waste your time, slow down your analysis, and can even sneak errors into your results. It's the format we all know, but it's holding us back in ways we don't always notice.
Now, the source material for this explainer, well, it doesn't pull any punches. It describes CSV as, and I'm quoting here, generally an ugly and bad format. Wow, that's a pretty strong take. So what's behind that level of frustration? Let's break down the actual issues.
So the biggest issue is that a CSV is, well, it's just text. That makes reading and writing it really slow, especially when datasets get big. It just doesn't scale well. But the real kicker is its total lack of structure. There's no official rule for what separates columns or what data types are in those columns. Is that 10 a number or the word 10? The computer has to guess. The source calls this an infer or die situation, and it often leads to these silent, frustrating errors that are a nightmare to track down. But hey, this isn't just about complaining. It's about finding a solution. And that solution is a modern format that was built from the ground up for the world of big data. So let's introduce the hero of our story, Apache Parquet.
So what exactly is Parquet? Well, the official definition is that it's an open-source file format built for two key things: really efficient storage and lightning-fast read speeds. And the secret to its power is this amazing concept called columnar storage.
That term, columnar storage, that's the key to everything. It's a totally different way of thinking about how you arrange data on a disk, and it is exactly what gives Parquet its incredible performance edge. So let's pull back the curtain and see how this magic actually works.
This right here is the core difference. A CSV is row-based, so if you want to get data from just one column in a file that has, say, 50 columns, the computer has to read every single row from top to bottom, including the 49 columns you don't care about. Ugh! But Parquet is column-based. If you only need 2 columns, it only reads those 2 columns. You can probably already see why this is an absolute game changer for analytics.
And this slide shows you exactly what's happening on the disk. See that top diagram? That's your typical row-based layout, like a CSV. All the info for row 1 is stored together, then row 2, and so on. Now look at the bottom. That's Parquet. It groups the data by column, storing all the values for one column together in these neat little chunks. This structure is just perfectly designed for the way we actually query and filter data.
But wait, it gets even smarter. Because you're storing data by column, you can do some really clever compression. One technique is called run-length encoding. So imagine you have a column with 10 million zeros in a row. Instead of writing the number 0 10 million times, Parquet just stores 2 things: the value, which is 0, and how many times it repeats, 10 million. That's a huge reason why these files end up being so small.
It also uses something called dictionary encoding, which is amazing for text. So if you've got a column with the city, San Francisco, repeated thousands of times, Parquet replaces that long string with a tiny little integer, and then it just creates a dictionary to look it up. The result? A massive drop in file size and a huge boost in speed.
Okay, so we've got this clever columnar storage and these really smart encoding tricks. But what's the real payoff? You know, let's translate all this tech talk into what it actually means for you and your work every day.
First and foremost, a massive boost in speed. Because your computer is reading only the columns it needs, and all that data is super compressed, your queries just run dramatically faster. And I'm not talking about a small improvement here. We're talking orders of magnitude faster in some cases. It's a huge difference.
Second, your files are just smaller, way smaller. Thanks to that columnar layout and the encoding we just talked about, it's pretty common to see Parquet files that are 75% smaller than the same data in a CSV. That saves you disk space, sure, but if you're working in the cloud, that directly saves you money on storage and data transfer costs.
And finally, you can say goodbye to that infer or die problem forever. Parquet stores the schema. You know, the list of column names and what their data types are, like string or integer or date, right inside the file itself. There is zero ambiguity, and that means fewer errors and way more reliable data pipelines.
So, the takeaway here is that a Parquet file is this perfect, self-contained little package with both the data and the metadata to describe it. And what makes it so useful is that you can query these files directly with SQL, just like a database table. And pretty much every modern data tool you can think of, from Spark to DuckDB to BigQuery, supports Parquet right out of the box.
You know, the best way to really appreciate the difference is to actually see it for yourself. So, enough theory, let's look at how you can start playing around with Parquet right now.
There are free tools out there like TAD that let you just open and look at Parquet files, and you can find tons of sample datasets online to get started. If you really want to get your hands dirty, you can use a tool like DuckDB to run SQL queries directly on a Parquet file right on your own laptop. It's surprisingly easy to see the performance benefits with your own eyes.
Which brings us to our final question, and it's a bit of a provocative one. Given Parquet's massive advantages in speed, in storage efficiency, and in data reliability, do you think the humble CSV file is finally becoming obsolete for any kind of serious data work? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for watching.